Hello everyone, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. My name is Raelan and welcome to my living room, which incidentally is also basically my dining room and my kitchen, and I can almost touch the one and only bedroom from here. I live in San Francisco, and although it's a super cool place to live, if you want to live someplace central, it basically means for most of us that you need to live pretty much in a shoebox. Now, I've only been in San Francisco for a few months, but so far I am absolutely loving it. It is such a cool place to be, but it really is not cheap, especially the cost of apartment rentals. They are mind-blowingly expensive. Mind-blowingly. Is that a word? I'm not sure if that's a word. Let's just pretend that's a word. If we want to live here, and especially if we want to live someplace central like we do, it means that we need to live on a pretty strict budget, especially when it comes to food. So what I'm going to be talking about today is how to eat a healthy vegan diet on a budget. Now, I don't actually find a vegan diet to be any more expensive than a meat-based diet, but there seems to be quite a few people with the impression that it is. But this has not been my experience. Now, there's not anything special that vegans eat, not if they're eating a healthy diet, because you're just eating plant-based foods, fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds, grains, all things that I would imagine all people should be eating. So really much of what I'm going to share in this video are things that will apply to virtually everybody. Although since people who eat a vegan diet eat only plant-based foods, I'm going to share some tips on how to bulk up on certain things and how to save some money on some of those things to maximize your meals and just really get the most out of the stuff that you're buying. Now, the reason the topic of how to eat a healthy vegan diet on a budget is so important to me, aside from the money-saving factor, is that I suffered from health problems, chronic health problems. I had chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME as some people call it, for about 10 years. And when I finally did recover, making that switch to a whole foods, plant-based diet was one of the key things that allowed me to get well. So I really just am passionate about finding ways for people to be able to eat this way and potentially see the benefits that I did as well. So I'm about to jump right into this, but before I do, it's important for you to know that I'm not a doctor or a dietitian or a healthcare professional of any kind. So nothing I share in this video should be construed as medical advice. This is just my experience of what has worked for me and sharing some of that with you today. I also sometimes use affiliate links in my videos. So if you use the links, I will get a small commission, but it will be at no extra cost to you. And I only ever suggest things that I actually use and believe in. All right, let's get right into this. So I'm going to take you around San Francisco a little bit and show you actually what it looks like when I go shopping and where I go. But when you're looking at the things that I show you and the prices that you see, where you live, it might be a little bit cheaper than what you're seeing here. Everything I'm showing is in US dollars, and because it's San Francisco, things tend to be a little bit pricier. So you might be able to save even more money than I'm saving here. And also, because I had to fight so hard to get back my health, I no longer make compromises when it comes to my diet, or I make as few as possible. So although this is my version of a healthy vegan diet on a budget, you could definitely still scale it down even further. And I know that the reality of some people's budgets is that theirs are going to be even smaller than mine is. So you might have to use even more cost-saving measures and be even more stringent with your choices than I am. What I'm doing today is an example of a healthy vegan diet. So something that has a variety of nutrients, lots of different foods involved, but still hopefully isn't too expensive. One last thing, although I am originally from Canada and we do use the metric system, since I'm currently in the US, I will be talking about things mostly in pounds. So for those of you who don't use pounds, just a quick reference is that 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. So over the course of this video, I'm going to throw 38 money-saving tips at you. They're going to be coming at you fast, but I'll make sure that you get them all. Now, I know most people think that the money saving happens at the grocery store, but in my experience, much of it happens before you even leave your home. So that's where we're going to start. So way before you even walk out the door, you need to know exactly what your budget is. So you need to sit down and figure out exactly how much it is that you can afford to spend each and every week when you go buy your food. So my husband and I have a budget of $100 per week for food, so that's $50 per person per week. And out of that, we get 37 individual meals. We eat all of our food from our groceries. We never eat out. So either we prepare it and eat it at home, or we prepare it and then we take it out with us someplace. So out of that, we get dinner for both of us 7 days a week, lunch for both of us 7 days a week, breakfast for me 7 days a week, and breakfast for him 2 days a week because he skips breakfast during the week. So for 37 meals divided by 100, that brings it to about $2.70 per meal. And if you could click on the poll button in the top right-hand corner of the screen right now and let me know if this is more, less, or right about on par with what you're looking to spend for yourself for your food budget. All right, next, figure out what your killer to filler ratio is going to be in your meals. If your budget is a little bit more generous, then you're going to be able to have a lot more killer or expensive foods. But if your budget is tighter, it's going to be a lot more filler. So you're going to need to start planning meals that have the bulk of the plate filled with things like potatoes or oatmeal or rice. And then a few vegetables and other things on the side. The next thing you gotta do is come up with a meal plan. You need a meal plan every single week. Find a template that you're gonna use every week, whether it's on your computer or something written, and you write down every bite of food and everything that you're gonna have to drink for the next week. You need to find some recipes. I find Pinterest is a great place to do this, and then slot in your meals for each and every day. And next, from that meal plan, you're obviously going to need to make a grocery list of your ingredients. I use an app called ANYLIST. I use the free version of it. I've been using it for ages and it works great. I simply plug in everything I need to buy and it automatically organizes everything for me into categories such as produce and frozen foods and condiments and whatnot. So super efficient and makes things much easier once you get to the grocery store. And when you're making up this meal plan, keep your meals simple. Complexity is the enemy of the budget shopper. All those complex fancy meals have so many obscure ingredients that are really going to break the bank when you go try and purchase everything that you're going to need for them. And also, this is such a simple one. When you're making up that meal plan, start by looking at what you already have. Look through your pantry, look through your cupboards, look through your freezer, all that stuff that's accumulating and not getting used. If you have a big bag of rice or a big bag of potatoes or different kinds of nuts or whatever, make some meals, plan some meals using those ingredients, because that's things that you won't have to fork out money for from your budget this week when you go shopping. And also plan to eat virtually everything at home or make the food at home and take it with you to work or wherever else you're going, because eating out is the enemy of both the budget shopper and also the healthy eater. And when you're cooking, if you end up making too much, freeze all of your leftovers if it's something that will freeze okay. Waste nothing. And then the next week, when you're doing your meal planning, when you see those items sitting in your freezer, put those in your meal plan for the following week because it'll save you money next week. Okay, so now it's actually time to leave your apartment or your house. And the most important thing here is to eat first. Do not leave hungry. If you leave hungry, when you get there, you're gonna buy more than you should. And when you head out, you need to figure out what the cheapest store option is for you. Don't just go anywhere. There are two very lovely grocery stores within walking distance of my apartment, and they would be so convenient for me to go to, and they have great stuff. But there are these trendy, organic, fancy type places, and they cost a fortune. So I just really can't afford to shop there right now. And when you're figuring out where to go, don't assume that farmers markets are the cheapest. I know a lot of people say that they are a great way to save money, but the couple that I've been to in San Francisco since I've gotten here, I haven't found to be any cheaper, and some of the stuff is actually a little bit more expensive. So although I am a huge supporter of farmers markets, I love them, I think they are a great thing, and I think when possible we should always go to them. Just don't always assume that this is going to be a cost-saving measure for you. And since we don't currently have a car, that means that I'm gonna have to take public transport to get wherever I'm going. So I'm gonna have to choose strategically something that's not too far away, that's not too inconvenient, because if it's a huge hassle, I'm just gonna be too tempted to just walk over to one of these grocery stores down the street from my apartment and shop there. So fortunately, I've found one that is just 2 train stops away from where I live, so it's super fast, quick, and cheap for me to get there. Here's our train. Okay, and here we are. Hello, Whole Foods. Oh, I just love this place. Just kidding. I can't afford to shop here right now. What an amazing place. I wish this is where we're shopping today, but this is not where we are going. This is where we're going. And again, there are probably cheaper spots to choose, but not ones that I can easily get to without a car. So this is the spot that makes the most sense for me. All right, now when you're grocery shopping, do your grocery shopping in the same order every week. Start in the same place and finish in the same place every week. And keep your most expensive items for last, which means that you always start in the bulk section. I plan as much of my meals as possible around the bulk section. They by far have the best prices and the best values on food in the grocery store. But remember, just because something's in the bulk section, it doesn't mean that it's cheap. So you still have to check prices. For example, right here, we've got pine nuts in the bulk section at $21.99 per pound. And when you're getting your food in the bulk section, make sure you weigh everything. Take note of how much whatever you're buying is costs per pound or per kilogram. Take it over to the scale, weigh it, and then see how much what you've just portioned out for yourself is gonna cost. And it's absolutely vital that you use a calculator while you're shopping if you're on a tight budget. Otherwise, there is no way for you to know how much you're spending or how much that grand total is going to be when you get to the checkout. So what I do is I keep a calculator open on my phone and I switch back and forth between my grocery shopping app and my calculator, and every single thing that goes into my cart gets added into that calculator. And when you get to the end of your grocery shopping trip, if you see on your calculator that you've gone over your budget, then you have to put stuff back. I've had to do this countless times and I don't love it, but sticking to the budget is the most important thing. The first gem in the bulk section is oatmeal. Rolled oats are a vegan hack. They are great for putting in smoothies. They are great as a filler in veggie loaves. You can make things like overnight oats or homemade granola. They really are a cheap, healthy food that you can put into so many things. So I've got about 4 pounds here, and at $1.99 per pound, and it's organic, it's only $8 for this entire massive bag. Compare this against $5.99 for just 2 pounds of the prepackaged stuff. That is significantly more expensive. And look at the price of this small bag of pre-made granola. Imagine how much granola you could make yourself with that huge bag of oatmeal that we just got. And dried legumes are another great healthy vegan hack. They are much cheaper and healthier than the canned versions. You get to ditch the preservatives and you also get to save a lot of money. So look at this. You can get organic chickpeas or garbanzo beans, whatever you want to call them, at $2.49 per pound. So this here is only about 2 pounds and it will double after you cook it. So just imagine what a massive amount of cooked chickpeas you'll have once you're done. And all of this for about $5 for probably about 4 pounds worth of food. So compare this at up to around $3 for just 1 pound of the canned version. To be healthy and save money with a vegan diet, you're gonna wanna make as much as you possibly can from scratch. Now, I eat a ton of hummus because I love it, it's delicious, it's healthy, it's a great source of plant-based protein, but to buy it in the store is really expensive. Now, the main ingredient in hummus is chickpeas, so when you imagine that big batch of chickpeas we just bought, imagine how much hummus that you could make for yourself. You're also going to want to, as much as possible, completely avoid the highly processed food at the grocery store. This aisle here is not for you. And neither is this one. This stuff is expensive and it's toxic and it has no place in a healthy vegan diet. Lots of quote unquote healthy people seem to gravitate towards granola bars, and do not be fooled. These are just candy bars in gym clothes. You're also going to want to avoid the vegan meat and dairy replacements. I don't know for sure, but I suspect that they aren't all that healthy and they are definitely pricey. And when you're shopping, obviously you need to compare prices for everything that you're looking for. So if you're looking for almond milk, for example, we've got prices ranging all the way from $4.99 all the way down to $2.99. And you're most often going to find the cheapest prices on the lowest shelf. And I also suggest staying away from the nut butters. They are calorie dense and they are easy to overeat, which I think makes them not all that healthy. And they are also incredibly expensive. Another great way to save money when you're eating a diet made up predominantly of fruits and vegetables is to mix in some frozen ones with the fresh ones. Now, I would love to eat only fresh produce. This is what I would eat 100% if my budget allowed. But the reality is that fresh stuff can be quite pricey and it adds up really fast. Just look at this bag of frozen mixed berries that I often buy to use in my breakfast smoothies. You get 2 pounds of berries for $12.99. Now compare that against these tiny packages of berries here for $5.99. It would take a ton of these little packages to fill up that giant bag of frozen ones that I just bought. And this is a great hack for vegetables as well, because look at this bag of frozen green beans. You got 2 pounds for $2.99. Compare that against the fresh option, which is 1 pound for $2.99. So literally double the price if you're gonna go fresh. Now you also might need to mix in some canned or bottled versions of things, and I try to avoid this as much as possible, but the reality of our budget now is that I do need to do this. My first choice is always fresh, and then my second choice is frozen, and then my third choice is canned or jars or bottles. Now look at these canned tomatoes at 12 cents per ounce and compare those against the fresh ones that are ranging from between 19 to 25 cents per ounce. That's up to double the price. And when you're cooking those meals that you've planned for yourself, you also got to do your own work. You got to do the labor. Don't be buying any pre-cut, pre-chopped, pre-packaged, pre-cooked anything. You're paying for all of that. Do the work yourself and you'll save a ton of money. And also, eat a lot of potatoes. They are another great veggie hack, but make sure you're buying the right ones because potatoes can even be quite expensive. Like, look at these fancy Dutch ones for $2.99 per pound. These potatoes are not for us. Okay, these are getting better. We've got $2 per pound, $1 per pound, 59 cents per pound, but I think we can still do better. All right, jackpot. Look what we've just found here. These potatoes are 49 cents per pound, which means we can get this entire bag for only $5. Imagine all the food that we can make with this massive bag of potatoes. This is definitely going in the cart. And that's another thing that can often save you money when buying produce, fresh produce, is to buy in larger quantities. Quite often, the larger prepackaged quantities are cheaper than the smaller quantities, but not always, so you always need to check the price. For example, we have spinach here, $4 for 5 ounces versus $5 for 16 ounces. So that's more than 3 times as much for just $1 more. And remember, weighing things isn't just for the bulk section. You need to weigh your produce as well. Mark down the price per pound or price per kilogram, walk it over to the scale, do the math of how much that bag costs, and add it onto your calculator. And eat tons of squash. Total veggie hack. It's so filling, it can be so satisfying, and it's relatively cheap. Here we've got squash at about $1.49 per pound. A little tip for squash is that even raw, it freezes really well. So you can buy a big one, take it home, peel it, chop it up into chunks, and then freeze some of it in some airtight containers and save it for future meals. And carrots are another veggie hack. I eat carrots with just about everything because they are really quite cheap. Look at this massive bag for $5.99. That's just 60 cents per pound of food. That is a great deal. And when you're comparing the cost of produce, you always have to compare the cost by weight. So whereas that big bag was just 60 cents per pound for carrots, these little fancy ones here are $3 per pound. Also, obviously, always look for sales. I feel like this one should go without saying, but then I also feel like it needs to be said. And when you're buying produce, the prepackaged quantities are often cheaper. So this bag of apples is even cheaper per pound than any of the loose ones. All right, we're done. And luckily, this trip ended up being under budget. Otherwise, I would have had to put some things back. And when I put things back, it's typically the fresh produce because that's what I consider the luxury items and it's typically the most expensive. So I will put back fresh produce and see what I can substitute it with from frozen or canned versions that's cheaper that will keep me in line with my budget. And once I'm done my grocery shopping, I always take an Uber or a Lyft back because one thing with eating a plant-based diet is that it is really heavy. It's a lot of produce and there's just no way I could manage all of that on a train by myself. But fortunately I don't live too far, so taking a rideshare back is not going to break the bank. Some bonus tips for you while we're driving back. One is to always be flexible. So if you grab an ingredient in the grocery store that you need for a recipe and you see that it's more expensive than you were anticipating that it would be, think what you can replace it with. Is there a cheaper version? Just don't be too rigid in the plan that you have and adapt as you go along. And don't buy a single thing that's not on your grocery list. You already have your plan for next week, so you don't need anything else. And this will keep you from buying impulse items which are typically either pricey or unhealthy or both. And become an expert at buying things in the exact quantities that you need. So if you need, say, almonds for a recipe and you need 1 cup, then go to the bulk section and buy just 1 cup. That way you don't end up with a pantry and cupboards full of all these extra leftover ingredients that never really seem to get used for anything. So that was it. There was your 38 things. I hope you found at least something in there useful, helpful, new, something that will help you save money and be healthier moving forward. And just quickly before we go, I'm going to show you what I use some of these groceries for, what some of the meals are that I make out of everything that I buy. Now that squash that we bought, one thing you can do is put it through a spiralizer and use it to make a healthy alternative to noodles. I'll put a link below to the spiralizer if you're unfamiliar with it and you want to check it out. It's quite a low cost, simple appliance, and you can really make a lot of great healthy meals with it. So once I've spiralized that squash, I'll just bake it in the oven and then I'll mix it up with some different things like, say, some sauteed spinach. And one of my favorite all-purpose sauces that I like to keep on hand I call Dreamy Tahini Sauce. It is just amazing. You can use it on like pasta type dishes, veggie dishes. You can use it as a dip, as a sandwich spread, just about anything. I'll put the recipe up for this and for everything that I mention in this video in case you want to screenshot it and give it a try yourself. Now from these groceries, I also made a couple meals out of some roasted potatoes, carrots, green beans, and some of that leftover squash. And then again, I just mixed it up in that tahini sauce and it was great. And we had a nice mix of some fresh food and some frozen food, and it really wasn't too costly. And with things like these vegetable dishes I've just mentioned, this is the killer. So on the side is always going to be a big pile of rice or potatoes or something that's lower cost, and depending on how big or how small your budget is going to determine how big or small that filler portion of your plate is going to have to be. Of course, I use some of those chickpeas to make some hummus. Now this one that I made here is a little bit fancier because it's got some sun-dried tomatoes and some garlic in it, but you can just make the plain version of the recipe and it is cheaper and absolutely delicious and healthy as well. I also use that massive bag of oatmeal for a few different things. One is for homemade granola. I always have a container of homemade granola in the fridge and I eat it like crazy. And again, how cheap or expensive your granola is really up to you. You get to choose what ingredients you put in it. If your budget is smaller, just put a few ingredients. It can be really simple and still be really delicious and healthy. Now, I also use some of that oatmeal for my breakfast every single day. I have breakfast smoothies every day and I put oatmeal in them. I do that so that they are more filling and more satisfying. I used to use nut butters for this, but as I said, they're expensive and calorie dense, and I found that the oatmeal is actually a more filling and feels like a healthier option to do this with. And just like with the granola, your smoothies can be as cheap or as costly as you want them to be. They don't have to be fancy to be delicious and healthy. When you're whipping these up in the blender, you can either pour it in a glass and have them as a traditional smoothie, or you can make it a little bit thicker and pour it in a bowl and then top it some of that amazing homemade granola that we just made. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found at least some of this interesting and informative, and I wish you all the best with your healthy vegan meal planning. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe button to let me know that you enjoyed it and that you'd like to see more videos like this. And you can hit that little gray bell down there next to the subscribe button, and that way you'll get a notification every time a new video of mine comes out. I do new videos every week, and I really hope that you'll join me for the next one. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next week.